These past 2 seasons of Formula 1 have shown the world that Max Verstappen is potentially on course to be one of the sport's greatest drivers when his career eventually comes to an end. His evolution from the erratic 17-year-old rookie in that Toro Rosso back in 2015 to a less erratic, quicker and more complete driver here in 2022 is one of the most interesting cases of driver development we've seen in the sport for quite some time. It seemed as though Verstappen had to shake off these criticisms of recklessness early in his career in order to be seen as favorable in the eyes of some fans, while other fans praised him for his never say die attitude. One that probably reminded them of the gladiators that headlined the sport back in the 80s and 90s. However, 1 year of Verstappen's career where he was under some of the most criticism he had ever been under was the 2018 season, where he started off the year with 4 mistakes or accidents in the first 4 races of the season. However, he would mature throughout the season, and in the latter half he would put down some stellar performances, the best of which we're about to dive into. My name is Intern, I talk wheel, and this is USA 2018, Max Verstappen's masterclass in race pace. As I said in the intro, Max's 2018 season had gone off to a somewhat shaky start. A spin in Australia, retirement in Bahrain after contact with Lewis Hamilton, running wide in China and costing himself a race win, then going on to hit and spin Sebastian Vettel later in that same race, and a double Red Bull DNF in Baku. Verstappen didn't have the cleanest record of a Formula 1 driver back in his day, but it was somewhat to be expected. He made his Formula 1 debut at just 17 years old, and along with his age, it was obvious it would take him a while to iron out some of the flaws of his driving style. However, for every mistake Max made, there was a highlight of his career to compensate. He became the youngest winner in Formula 1 history at the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix at 18 years old in what was his debut for Red Bull Racing, and scored 1 less podium than teammate Daniel Ricciardo that season. Going on to 2017, he would rack up more wins at Malaysia and Mexico, and great performances like China, as well as out-qualifying Ricciardo 13-7 that year with an average gap of over a tenth. Fans would still see this talent shine out at points in 2018. After Max's first 4 races, he would rack up 4 podiums in his next 5 starts, capped off with a brilliant win at Red Bull's home race in Austria. It didn't stop there, however. Max would bag a top 5 finish in every race he finished from that win all the way to the end of the season, a season that eventually brought us here, to the Circuit of the Americas. This race for Max would be a bit different from the usual. In Q1 he set a decent lap, but at some point in the session he hit a curb that ended up doing significant damage to his gearbox, enough to warrant a gearbox change and a 5-place grid drop for the race. Because Max did not set a lap in Q2, he qualified 15th, and that coupled with the grid drop meant that Max would be starting the race from the back, with only the 2 Toro Rossos of Hartley and Gasly behind him, who also had penalties of their own. Max had himself a good getaway off the line, and some clever car positioning tied up with 2 first lap incidents, one involving Alonso and Stroll, and the other involving Vettel and Ricciardo. Verstappen found himself P9 by lap 2. 9 spots on lap 1 was amazing, but he had 8 more people to pass if he was gonna win this race, and it was destined to get harder and harder as the quality of the cars and drivers up the grid were higher than those he just got past. Alas, he carried on, and he got himself up into P5 with ease by lap 9, a P5 that became P4 when teammate Daniel Ricciardo retired from 4th place, his 7th retirement of the season. Verstappen started the race on the soft compound tire, which on this specific weekend was the most durable one. Max found himself behind Valtteri Bottas, who was on super softs in a battle for P3. Max would pit for super softs on lap 22 with the intent of going to the end. Doing the opposite, Bottas pit a lap later for softs, but ended up being undercut by Max, who used his fresh super softs to the best of their abilities. Verstappen also found himself closer to race leaders Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen due to his overall pace being quite good. Hamilton pit earlier in the race for softs under a VSC, but he needed to make another stop in order to make it to the end and relinquished his lead to pit for fresh softs. The final stint of the race would develop into a three-way battle for the win between Kimi, Lewis and Max. Raikkonen had the lead with worn tires, Verstappen was second with worn but faster tires, and Hamilton was hard charging in the back, making up time with the freshest tires of the three. Max was on supers trying to catch Kimi's worn softs, but soon found himself having to defend from Lewis, who was on fresh softs. The lead three were all within 3 seconds of each other, and Hamilton was pushing as hard as he could, not just to beat Max, but to clinch himself a 5th world championship, which he would need P2 to do. Max tried everything to catch Kimi, but with 3 laps to go, he made a mistake braking at the end of the back straight that ended any chance of him winning, and also ended any chance of Lewis getting P2. Verstappen broke late going into the corner and allowed Hamilton to go side by side with him through the next series of corners. Hamilton attempted a switchback, planning to go around the outside of Max at turn 17. Unfortunately for Lewis, he ran wide making the move and fell significantly behind Max as a result. Raikkonen would go on to take the win, his first since 2013, as Max would take second and Lewis would round out the podium in P3, having to wait until the next round in Mexico to clinch his elusive 5th world championship. In the past few weeks, the Formula 1 world has seen Max win the Hungarian and Belgian Grand Prix from 10th and 14th respectively. Both wins have been criticized by some as being down to the car, and whether or not that's true, this race shows that Max Verstappen has been capable of cutting through the field for a good while now, even when he's not in the best car. I mean, what can I say? He went from dead last to a P5 finish in Russia just 2 races before this one. USA remains to me one of, if not Max's greatest drive. P18 at the start to 1.2 seconds off the win without so much as the benefit of a safety car in a Red Bull that was still somewhat behind the Ferrari and the Mercedes on pure pace, not to mention that Renault power unit at the time, not to mention him keeping back Hamilton on his worn super softs. Given Max's shaky start to the year, I believe this may have been the race where Max Verstappen began to fine-tune his craft that led to races like Germany 2019, Brazil 2019, and Silverstone 2020. Craft that led to him becoming who I believe is the best driver in the sport today, and potentially one day being one of the best to ever race in Formula 1. My name is Intern, I talk wheel, and thanks for watching.